Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're going to get into this a little bit. Just to begin with, we're having a little bit of big marker technical issues on our side. So that being said, I wanted to let you know that. I also wanted to we'll go ahead and pop up here the slideshow that we're going to be going through, or the not the slideshow, the deck that we're going to be using for this, while we kind of get back around to getting everybody on the same page. I'll just kind of kick us off here. My name's Josh. I'm the digital marketing specialist here at PKI Solutions. I wanted to welcome everybody this morning. Thank you so much for joining me. I know that you're taking busy time out of your busy day, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate people wanting to really build a foundation for their education for their PKI environments. We're going to get into some pretty exciting topics that pen testers, hackers, and auditors are already pretty well aware of, such as the awesome Spectra Ops certified pre-owned white paper, Splunk integrations, and more. We have a lot of features. So without further ado, welcome to the May 9th, 2023 PKI Spotlight feature release update. Nick and Mike will be leading this webinar, and I'll sort of help move things along and keep us on track. We want to mention, first of all, that we're going to have Q&As. Feel free to ask your questions in chat or in the Q&A section. If you ask it in chat, it'll disappear because we'll approve it, and then we'll move it over to the Q&A section. So if you see it disappear, it's not because we don't like you. It's because we've moved it to another area. So feel free to ask questions, and please don't be too concerned about the questions you're asking and whether or not your name or company is going to be attached to it, because we can redact your name. We don't need to. We wouldn't use a quote from you without your permission. Is I guess what I'm trying to say. This is for internal use, and it's really crucial to us because it helps guide the direction of PKI Solutions and PKI Spotlight, and helps us to determine features, future features, and so on and so forth. So please bring us questions. We wanted to also mention, this is you'll see on your screens that there will be 3 polls today, and 3 winners as well. To qualify for winning some swag from us, you need to both contribute to the poll that's currently live on LinkedIn and be at this webinar. And at the end of the webinar, we'll bump the 2 lists up against each other, and whoever, 3 people that have attended both or contributed to both will be entered into a random drawing, and we'll send you some swag. We also have a year-end promo. The year-end promo is going to be a little bit different in the sense that throughout the rest of the year, we'll be rewarding people that we interact with or engage with socially through the website, one-on-one. We'll be rewarding folks with numbers to enter a drawing that we will do at the end of the year. So the way to earn more tickets, so to speak, is to engage more. And again, the reason for this is because the more engagement we get, the better direction that we have, and the better feedback we can respond to with you. This is our mission statement. I'm going to move on to what our mission statement is for you, what our goal is for this webinar, and really pretty much as our company. We really want to see improved outcomes for your organization. I mean, that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it, is that we want to help you, and we want to help your environment, and we want to help your organization. That's the goal here. We've got a number of really high-profile updates that we're getting into, 5 to be exact. I won't get into the weeds on the details of each of these, but these are the 5 that we will be considering today. So let's get a little bit further in. We live in an ever-changing landscape right now, and we'll just kind of highlight what that means to us. Every week, every day, every week, you could swap out these headlines with fresh headlines, right? Think in terms of like MSI and so on and so forth. This past week, there's a lot of kind of scary headlines out there that we deal with, in this environment. What's the option? Well, the option isn't to do nothing. That's not a very viable option. If you add to the headlines that we just looked at, the lack of SMEs, the lack of skills, the lack of maybe talent in a shrinking talent pool, even now in a recession-aware environment, and not doing anything could be a recipe for disaster, right? So that's the direction we're going in with this webinar. How can we not do nothing? How can we take the next step towards making sure that our PKI environment is secure against these threats? So with that, we're going to move into slide number, well, actually not slide number, poll number 1. And I'm going to post this poll live. You guys will have an opportunity to talk about it. And I just want to make sure I have the right one here. Yeah, here we go. So this will appear on your screens. Please take your time voting on it. Again, we use this internally to help us determine what jobs you need us to address, how we can work better for you, and how we can go forward with the company in a direction that helps you better. So that being said, that's poll 1. Take your time answering it, and while you're answering it, we can move into the first feature. So I will hand this over to Nick and Mike, who are going to take over.
Thanks, Josh. And thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us the opportunity to share what we've been up to this last quarter. My name is Nick Siracoldit, and I'm the Director of Business Development here at PKI Solutions. Have you ever wondered if your PKI environment is secure, or better yet, what it takes to keep it secure? If your organization performed a security audit against your PKI environment, what would the results be? How much time do you take to ensure your PKI environment will not be the source of a security attack? Well, you now have a tool in PKI Spotlight that will show you where your vulnerabilities are and what you need to do to fix them. We know your time is valuable, and you have a lot of priorities elsewhere, delivering against your identity and access management strategy. Just to recap, last quarter, we released a security threat detection capability in PKI Spotlight. This level of automated security threat detection is now built into the PKI Spotlight engine. It runs in the background, similar to the best practices, and includes a recipe of items that in combination triggers the security threat alert so that you know which server is vulnerable, which component needs to be fixed, and the steps on how to fix it. With this quarter's release, we've added security checks for known vulnerabilities outlined in the Spectra Ops publication. We're pleased and honored to have the authors of the certified pre-owned document, Lee and Will, in attendance today, and grateful for their contributions to the PKI community. Mike, I'm going to hand this over to you, Mike, who's a lead dev on our team, to tell us more about why Spectra Ops document is so important.
Yeah, until the Spectra Ops doc was published, cyber attacks involving ADCS have largely been theoretical. This is the first time that a step-by-step guide or set of guides has been publicly available for abusing Microsoft ADCS to attack Active Directory. The instructions can allow an attacker to elevate their access all the way to enterprise administrator, essentially God in Active Directory.
So I'm just going to jump in real quick, Mike. So does this mean that pen testers can refer? So I know almost nothing about pen testing, right? But I have been on CryptBB and Nold and Breach before it was taken down. I do see people talk about the white paper. Is this a walkthrough? Could I use this? Could my grandma use this as a walkthrough?
The way it's laid out makes it extremely easy to follow, even for someone with very little technical experience. And like you said, pen testers are sort of ethical hackers, and they tend to have to be generalists. So, if they want to try and find attack surfaces in a PKI, a document like this is a go-to resource.
Thank you so much. Okay, I wondered about that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, these cases are published; they're out there. So it's whether you're NERC compliant or even if your PKI is walled off from the internet, the threat still exists. So what's the challenge? We've heard from our customers across energy, utilities, financial, healthcare, and it's consistent. They either don't know the document exists, or they know it exists, but don't have the time and the expertise to implement the mitigation measures that are recommended in the 143-page document. Well, our feature covers it, so you don't have to. By adding 5 additional threats, Mike, I know we'll get you into that a little bit. And by the way, 6 of these best practices we covered previously that were in the document. And then we've added also 2 more events that are covered with our events engine. And let me hand it over to Mike, because I think you guys want to hear less from me and more from Mike about the mechanics around this and how we built it.
Right. So thanks, Nick. Our Spotlight security threat engine is constantly monitoring your PKI and uses complex correlation rules to detect known attack vectors, and it generates alerts containing detailed threat explanations and very clear remediation instructions. It's intelligent, but it's not noisy. All the alerts you see are important and actionable. So I'm sure you want to see this in action. Let me show you Spotlight in action. Okay, so here's Spotlight, and here's my CA. I have a certificate template assigned to the CA. I'm giving it a pretty descriptive name here, Threat ESC1. And if I go ahead and take a look at this template in Active Directory, the main problem with this template is that the subject name is wide open. The requester can name any subject they want. And in addition to that, there's no approval required to issue the cert, and there's no enrollment agent signatures required. So this gets issued the moment it gets requested. And to top it all off, one of the application policies is a client authentication type of EKU. So this basically this is a certificate that if a malicious actor was able to successfully request a certificate against this template, they would have the ability to essentially do certificate-based client authentication as anyone they want. So now in Spotlight, this CA is being monitored in Spotlight. And you see here, I'm looking at the agent configuration, the CA configuration, and we have the templates that are enabled on the CA, and I can show you all the same details I showed you in the Microsoft GUI right here. But what's important is on the threats page is we have a threat open that's talking about this specific template. And if we look at the details of the threat, and we have a detailed description, and here's the recipe why it was flagged. So it's assigned to at least one CA in your Active Directory. It does not require manager approval. It does not require any co-signatures, and the subject name is open to be changed, and it has a client authentication type EKU. So as soon as that template is assigned to the CA or has one of these configurations made to the template, this threat will be triggered within minutes. So, and let me show you a threat being generated in near real time. So my memories of first getting started with PKI was that I thought that I could publish a template that was essentially benign by essentially removing all application policies. My assumption was, well, if a certificate doesn't have any EKUs, then it can't be used for anything, right? Wrong. No application policies, no EKUs equals all application policies. So this is essentially a Swiss Army knife certificate template. So just create the template in Active Directory, and I'll go ahead and I'll assign it to my CA. And in a few minutes, our threat engine will do another pass of Active Directory and find this template, and we'll see another threat. And while we're waiting for that to happen, I just wanted to point out that this is the first time that I know of that there is a interface where you can look at the assigned templates to a CA and see all the attributes of the templates here in the screen here. So in the Microsoft GUI here, if I want to look at a template attributes, it seems like you should be able to open this guy right here, but you only get a very small subset of the details here. But in Spotlight, we give you every piece of information and more that's included in the Microsoft certificate template snap-in. So the threat engine will take a little time to run, and once it does, we'll see a badge icon. And while we're waiting for that to happen, I'm going to pass this back over to Josh, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to pop this up. This is the white paper. Maybe I'm not going to pop this up because I can't scroll through it like I want to. So I'm going to unshare that and go the other way with it again. One moment here. All right. So we're moving on to poll. Let's just visit poll 2 real quick here. Poll 2 is related to how high value certs. I'm going to leave this on the screen, and I'm going to also publish it so that you guys can start doing your thing. And again, these polls will be up. You'll be able to vote on these polls throughout the whole webinar, just so you know. And then we're not quite ready to move on to feature number 2 yet. Correct, Mike?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So this is poll number 2. And then will you give me a heads up when you're ready to have the screen again?
Sure. And Another thing I'd like to point out is that, as Nick mentioned, we also have a best practices engine. So things that aren't exactly a security threat, but are a best practice for configuring certificate templates, certificate authorities, OCSP, NDES. We do a lot, but why don't we move on for now, Josh, and we can come back to that. I know everyone's time is very
yeah, no problem, no worries. So
I applaud you for doing the live demo, which no smoke and mirrors here. So it's sometimes the demo gods attack us and try to prevent us from showing that. But I think the one cool thing, Mike, that you showed, if you remember on that screen, those alerts, those best practices, those security threats are alerts are stateful. So if you remember the screen that he showed, it showed that there was a vulnerability, it showed there was a threat, and until that threat is remediated with the steps provided in the alert, and when those steps are completed, then the alert goes away. And so it's a really good indicator for folks to know when stuff has been resolved or prioritize what needs to be resolved. Well, thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Okay, so this might be a good time to move into feature number 2.
Yep.
Okay. Gosh, this one, breaches are highlight just how important, securing high value certificates and the risks associated with their compromise. Can't talk about this enough, because when attackers are able to issue fraudulent certificates, they can effectively impersonate legitimate websites and even services, making it super difficult for users to distinguish between the real and then the fake ones. We know our customers are challenged staying on top of this on their own. I had a conversation with Jake from our professional services team, and he shared with me that Spotlight pointing out these high value templates is so important because the clients he works with initially don't know about these high value certificates or why they need to monitor them. He also shared that as soon as he explains what they are, they realize the gap. But until now, with Spotlight, there hasn't been a good way to keep track of them. And his point was too many breaches have occurred due to code signing abuse. So now with Spotlight, we've included the detection of high-value certs, triggering events when digital certificates that have a higher level of risk or value, such as code signing, wildcard certificates, key recovery or data recovery agent certificates, or even subordinate CAs are issued. And this gives you the ability to react in real time to revoke such certificates, which were issued maliciously, or like Mike pointed out earlier, just maybe an error. Mike, back to you. And I know, because we've had so many conversations on the product and the dev side, and I know how strongly you feel about this feature. Walk us through how Spotlight detects some of these high-value certs.
Yeah, sure thing. Let me share my screen again. So Spotlight is when the Spotlight agent is installed on a CA, it's constantly monitoring via the exit module for the issuance of certificates and the issuance of CRLs, anything that gets written to the or is just processed by the CA service. So let me show you an example. So I have a template assigned to my CA that issues certificates with the code signing EKU. So I'm going to go ahead and use PowerShell, the get certificate commandlet in PowerShell to generate that code signing certificate. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to create a certificate that has a DNS name with a wildcard character, star.brunoco.com. So that'll be a certificate that someone could install on multiple different pieces of infrastructure with different names, as long as they're part of the brunoco.com domain. So let's go back to Spotlight. And as you can see, I have 2 new events. And now we have a high value alert for code signing. And usually here you have pertinent information about that certificate request with the code signing KU. And we also have another event that was fired for the issuance of a cert with a wildcard SAN right here. So essentially real time, you know that a certificate with a high value property was issued. And so most of you on this call, I'm sure, are aware of why this is so important. So when code signing certificates are issued out of band, they can have serious consequences, and because they can be used to trick systems, to trust software or application malicious code, and it can bypass endpoint security and virus detection software. And it's assumed to be trusted because it's signed by a certificate that's chains up to your organization's PKI. So in essence, Mimikatz executables can run like any other approved software, such as Microsoft Word. Now, wildcard certificates should just be an exception, not the rule. They introduce risk because an attacker can use one to impersonate subdomains or for phishing attacks. They can also introduce management overhead when it comes to revocation, because admins could be hesitant to revoke wildcard certs due to the sheer number of systems they could be installed on and shared by. Subordinate CA certificates are issued to other certification authorities, which in turn can sign identity certificates themselves. The issuance of a sub-CA certificate is a very significant event, usually involving a key generation ceremony and a quorum of authorized PKI administrators. If a malicious actor can have an organization's PKI sign a rogue sub-CA certificate, they can use it to issue rogue and entity certificates, which would allow otherwise untrusted devices and people to authenticate to your organization's resources successfully.
That's great. Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
I think we're ready to maybe move on to feature number 3, which will be...
All right. We're going to let's talk about some more best practices. And I'll ask the question, how does everyone avoid issues today with your OCSP servers, especially knowing that, issues could potentially disrupt your certificate validation process or even potentially compromise the security of your OCSP? Curious. We know it's so hard to stay on top of all of these knowledge-based articles, KB articles, and even published support articles, especially if they require you staying on top of compatibility with OSs and mitigation steps and all of that. Well, one thing here at PKI Solutions that I'm proud of to be part of is that our product team works so closely with our professional services experts like Mark Cooper, like Jake, to ensure that we're on top of all of the relevant published supported articles that impact PKI. And again, I say this, we do it, so you don't have to. We hear constantly from you and your challenges, especially when it comes to OCSP. Which is why in Spotlight, we now include the detection of unknown OCSPs so that you have the confidence that your OCSP environments are configured not only to recognize if a certificate is revoked, but whether or not the CA actually issued the certificate being queried by the reliant party. And so I'm curious. I know how we did it. I know I'd love for Mike to show you how we would accomplish this and how we did it. Mike, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Nick. So Microsoft's OCSP implementation, if you want to enable what we call deterministic OCSP, it requires that you maintain a directory of empty files named after the serial numbers of valid certificates that were issued by the CA. Our Spotlight agent continuously monitors the configuration of your OCSP configurations to ensure that these directories are specified and that they actually exist. And speaking of staying on top of documentation, we should really talk about Microsoft KB 754 and how it impacts certificate-based client authentication in AD. When this goes into effect, all client authentication certificates will need to include a new extension that specifies the SID of the identity it was issued to. Now, we've addressed this in Spotlight in two ways. First, our best practices engine continuously monitors all assigned certificate templates and alerts if any templates containing a client authentication type EKU is not configured to require the SID extension to be populated in the cert. Secondly, our best practices engine also monitors the configuration of your enterprise CAs and alerts if the CA is explicitly configured to disable the SID extension. With these checks in place and alerts addressed, inoperable client authentication certificates essentially can't be generated.
Thanks for bringing that up. That almost forgot that one, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Let me. I see some questions coming through. I'm just going to call a little bit of an audible. That we've got our own Mark Cooper. Look, he's in the public thread there. I can see him answering questions, and I really appreciate you joining Mark and answering questions. So if anyone is out there, you've got Mark Cooper on the thread answering questions. Just giving him a little bit of a shout out. But Josh, don't panic. I'm going to give it right back to you for our next poll question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, before we go on, I want to make sure everyone realizes this is not smoke and mirrors. So here's the second threat alert that was generated for when I published my my test template with no EKUs. So like I said, our threat engine is always running. Sometimes it takes a little time, but it's never very long. So you'll know very shortly after something is misconfigured in your PKI environment.
Thanks, Mike, for closing the loop on that one.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I am going to share again. We are moving on to poll 3, which is which PKI monitoring features would you be most interested in trying out with, wait for it, PKI Spotlight's freemium version? Now, I'm not completely sure that we've decided that we're going to call it freemium. I think that's an internal discussion that we're still having, but it sounded cool and I really liked it, so I decided to use it. So I'll make my apologies later, but I'm going to go ahead and post this poll for you guys to answer. And it's not, you'll see, it's not all inclusive for all the features. So if you have something that you'd like to see featured in the freemium, my email address is attached to this question that you guys can answer. So
wow, your real email address. Go, Josh.
I know. Okay, I'm handing it back to you, Nick. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is a good one. get this a lot. Does PKI Spotlight include what Microsoft System Center Operations Manager, aka SCOM, specifically the ADCS Management Pack monitor? So does PKI Spotlight include SCOM's ADCS Management Pack? There's a lot of acronyms in there. Well, this is a common question we get a lot, right, Mike? Either in our communities or on demos and so forth. And one that our product development team is so happy to confirm yes with you today. Yes, exclamation point. And here's the scenario. Some of our customers, and maybe you all out there might be familiar or in a situation that you're using SCOM, because it's historically one of the only options for log monitoring for your ADCS environments. And you're challenged because it's a lot of work. It takes upkeep and expertise in order to manage it, as well as the management packs associated with it for ADCS. So and I think the other common scenario, if you understand, if you have this in place, is it's way too noisy. So you miss out on some of the things that you got it in the first place. So we've made it easier for you. The 117 events from the management pack, the ADCS management pack, are now included in PKI Spotlight events. And yay. But on top of that, I just wanted to recap. So on top of that, you have the 61 plus best practices for ADCS. You saw some of the security threats that we're adding in, detection alerts that we're getting in. So that's 24 security related threat detection alerts. But then also don't forget, it also includes you saw that from Mike's view earlier, the deep descriptions, the subject matter expertise that's in there, the remediation playbooks, not only for the best practices, but also for the security threat alerts. All of that is there. And I'm not even going to hand it back to you, Josh. I'm just going to go straight into feature 5. If that's okay.
Do it.
Not even going to ask for permission. I'll ask for forgiveness later. And then last but not least, because I want to get to the questions, last but not least, we've heard from our customers again that they really matter to us, and you all matter to us, and the PKI data, it just can't be siloed and ignored anymore. It's just that's just not viable. PKI information and these remediation playbooks from PKI Spotlight is not just for the PKI teams either. You're telling us that it needs to be reviewed, and Gartner's telling us it needs to be reviewed by other infrastructure, network, and security operations teams. We're taking a step forward to ensuring that you can access your PKI data with your SIM solutions, or your security and information event management solutions. And in this release, we've integrated with Splunk. We have an integration with Splunk. So if you are a Splunk or using Splunk today, go to Splunk Base. That's their marketplace. Go ahead and download our Splunk certified app. We've partnered with Splunk to ensure that PKI Spotlight data maps to Splunk's common information model. This is important because you don't have to spend the time doing that. We did it for you. So all you do is you download the app. If you're a Spotlight customer, type in the integration or type in the appropriate protocols and passwords and things, and you can now connect it into your Splunk instance. And now by using this add-on with Spotlight, you have visibility into all of the events, best practices, security threat alerts, remediation playbooks from Spotlight into your Splunk instance. I know what you're thinking. Not everyone on this call is a Splunk customer. I totally get it. Don't worry. We're working on other SIEM integrations, and also the ability to get PKI Spotlight via syslog as well. So we got you covered. I keep handing it over to Mike because Mike, it's just us two. But you had some experience dealing with this, and maybe can you share that experience with our attendees?
Yes, I'm very excited about this feature because in my previous life I was a PKI engineer, and what I found is that when you're the PKI engineer, you're usually also doing operations because operations teams are very hesitant to take on PKI. In fact, in my previous company, the operation team that we had available to us was responsible for hundreds of applications, and the team had very high turnover. So they effectively refused to take on PKI due to the complexity. What we had to end up doing was custom code a monitoring tool specifically for them, and we had to maintain that. And even then, we generally had to get involved with day-to-day things that engineering shouldn't really need to get involved with. So what SIEM integration does is it simplifies handing PKI off to a level 1 operations or SOC support team, because now when you have to write the SOPs for PKI support, well, your operations team likely already has lots of experience working with Splunk alerts, and you've effectively boiled down level 1 support of PKI to responding to Splunk alerts. So this is a huge win, and it's a huge monkey off of engineers' shoulders to be able to hand off the support day-to-day support features to operations. And before we go on, I just want to give everyone a quick look at how you'd go about configuring Splunk in Spotlight. So you'll go to Settings, and then under Integrations, you'll see Splunk. You'll click on Splunk, and then we already have some Splunk instances set up, but it's essentially as simple as putting in, giving it a name, a URL, including the port number and the authentication token, and you're ready to go. So we made this as simple as possible for you.
Yeah,
so
that's
I'll hand
great.
that back to you, to Nick.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to hot potato it back. I think I'm handing it back to you, Josh. But I think we covered 5 and pretty quickly. So I wanted to just put ourselves out there. Thank you. I see 65. I think someone told me 65 attendees. We're truly grateful that you took the time out to be here. If there's something that we didn't show you, we'd love to show you. If there's something that you need, and it's important to you and your environment, PKI environment, then please let us know. We'd love to hear from you in the chat here, or you can reach out to us anytime.
Yeah, so we have some time left here. We're at about 44 minutes in, so we've got 15, 16 minutes.
Sweet.
And so feel free to ask questions if you have more questions. Mark will answer them, or we can answer them live right now, right here. In the meantime, I'm going to leave this screen up. This is probably one of the most important screens to have up today. And I'm just going to leave this up for a little while. We'll revisit it here in a moment. But yeah, any questions that you want to direct directly to Nick or Mike? We'll allow a little time for that. We need like Jeopardy music. Right? Let's see. The thing is with having Mark in the chat is we may be getting these all updated. All these answers may be coming directly from him in fast succession. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's fantastic.
I know, right? It's awesome. Well, if there aren't more questions, I can sell everybody back 15 minutes or so, but we can wrap up as well. Mike, Nick, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'd just like to, if you weren't here for our last webinar, this is the first time you're joining us, and you've been dealing with PKI for a long time. Spotlight is really revolutionary in that we have our is alive feature, which tells you if your CA and NDES services are truly working, not just that the service is running, but they're truly online and actually able to do their jobs. And that's been a kind of a watershed moment for NDES specifically, with the proliferation of mobile devices and just lots and lots of devices needing certificates, not just web servers anymore. People really rely on NDES, and it's become a single point of failure. But Spotlight, the NDES Spotlight is alive feature lets you know the moment there's a problem. So you won't hear from your customers, you won't hear from angry application owners. You'll know from Spotlight, and you'll be able to handle it potentially before there's business impact. And,
yeah, so I had a question from somebody named Mark Cooper in the chat, and it says, anonymous person asks, what's next, guys? And that's kind of a nice segue into what we were going to be talking about next, too, which is that we went over a lot of big new features today, along with, frankly, kind of a little bit of an alarming walkthrough on what it would take a noob like my grandmother to do to get into a PKI environment and wreak havoc. So armed with this knowledge, we really encourage you to just maybe start the process of a conversation with us. We'd like to see how we can help you future-proof your PKI environment, either through PKI Spotlight or through our professional services. But it's going to start with a conversation, and it doesn't have to be a big, heavy conversation. We just want to get the ball rolling. Ask us questions. Sometimes you don't have time to ask questions in these webinars. That's okay. Also, that was a little bit of a subtle hint for how to receive tickets for our end of year drawing. The more engagement we have with you, the more opportunities we'll have to award basically over $1,000 worth of prizes there at the end. We wanted to thank you guys, thank everybody who attended. People are starting to drop off now, so I want to make sure we thank you before you leave. We really want to thank again the Spectra Ops folks, the authors. They may have been on this webinar. I didn't get a chance to look at the attendees, so I'm not 100% sure, but thank you so much. And we have an update. We have a June webinar. June 14th will be an office hours webinar, same time, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're determining the theme of that tomorrow, and we'll release that online tomorrow as well. So without further ado, unless Mike or Nick have something else to say, I think we're good. And you guys get 10 minutes back to your day.
Yeah, no, we're grateful for you attending, and you've got our email addresses, and please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to connect with you. We'll go through here all the questions. Josh, let's just not make sure we don't miss any, and we can kind of we'll respond to each and every one.
Absolutely. Yep. And the landing page will be live along with the Q&A. Again, redacted. Don't worry that we're going to put your name out there without you knowing it, please. And please start the conversation back and forth, even if it's just, through LinkedIn or whatever. Love to hear from you. That being said, thank you guys. Have a good rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.